You know that moment when you walk into a room and the air just changes? Like every conversation drops half a volume and 50 pairs of eyes flick toward you for half a second before pretending they didn't? That's exactly what happened last fall when I stepped into the country club's ballroom with Jessica on my arm. Jessica, by the way, was Mark Hargrove's wife. Mark Hargrove being the guy my wife Lisa had been warming up for the better part of 18 months. I'd been planning that entrance for weeks. Not in some cartoon villain way. I'm not pacing around a lair stroking a cat, but quiet, methodical, the way I've run every business I ever built from nothing. You don't get to a point where banks call you first by flying off the handle. You wait, you watch, you line everything up, and then you move one time. One clean move. Lisa was standing by the silent auction table in that navy dress she thought made her look 10 years younger. Mark had his hand on the small of her back, leaning in to whisper something that was making her laugh the way she used to laugh at my jokes 15 years ago. Then she spotted me. The laugh died mid-breath. Her face went the color of printer paper. Mark turned to see what stole the air out of her lungs. And when he realized who Jessica was clinging to, smiling like we'd been close friends for years, his hand dropped like my wife's back had turned red hot. Jessica just squeezed my arm tighter and said, loud enough for the circle around them to hear, "Mike, you promised me that introduction to your wife. I've heard so much about her." Pure class. Jessica's a trial attorney. She doesn't raise her voice when she guts people. She just smiles and lets the silence do the work. I wish I could say I felt triumph right then, but honestly, my chest felt like someone parked a truck on it. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids off at college, a house we picked out together before we could even afford it. And there she was, frozen like a deer that finally heard the twig snap. I'd pictured this moment 100 times, but I never pictured how much it would hurt to watch the woman I loved realize the game was over. But hurt doesn't mean you stop walking forward. I'd already come too far. People think revenge is about screaming or punching or burning the house down. For men like me, 51, self-made, raised by a dad who said real men don't whine, they fix things. Revenge looks a lot calmer than that. It looks like spreadsheets at 3 a.m., burner emails, a private investigator who used to work IRS fraud, and a forensic accountant who owes me favors from the time I kept his company out of bankruptcy. It looks like waiting until you have every single piece before you flip the table. Let me take you back 18 months before that party, just so you understand how completely blindsided I wasn't. It started with money disappearing in ways that didn't add up. Not big flashy withdrawals. Lisa was too smart for that, but steady drips. $5,000 here to help her sister with medical bills. $8,000 there for a design course in New York she never attended. Another 12 wired to some LLC in Delaware that supposedly handled event planning. I only caught it because I still sign every check over $10,000 myself. Old habit from the days when $10,000 was a whole year's profit. I asked her about it one night over takeout tie in the kitchen. Calm, like we were discussing the grocery list. She didn't even blink. Tears came instantly, like she'd been saving them in a jar for exactly this moment. "Mike, I didn't want to worry you. My sister's in real trouble, and you've been so stressed with the new warehouse." Then the hug, the hair stroking my neck, the whole performance. I bought it. Not because I'm stupid, because I wanted to believe the woman I met at 27, who used to fall asleep on my chest watching Seinfeld reruns, was still in there somewhere. That was the first lie I let slide. There were more. By spring of last year, the drips had turned into a stream. Our joint Amex started showing charges at places we'd never discussed. A boutique hotel in Miami, first-class tickets to Vegas for one, for $1,800 at a plastic surgeon in Miami Beach. She told me it was a mommy makeover consult for a friend. I started keeping screenshots. Quietly. Like a man collecting parts for a machine he hopes he'll never have to turn on. Then came the day I found the offshore account. I was up in the attic pulling Christmas decorations. Yeah, I'm the guy who still drags the fake tree down himself, when I knocked over an old shoebox of hers. Out fell a debit card I'd never seen. Black metal, no name on it, just a tiny Mercury-looking logo. I stuck it in my pocket instead of asking. That night, after she was asleep, I photographed it front and back, ran the bin online. Registered to a Wyoming LLC created 3 weeks after our 20th anniversary. 2 days later, my guy, Russ, ex-IRS, drinks like a fish but can follow money through 17 shell companies before breakfast. Confirmed the account had $487,000 in it. All from our joint savings, moved in chunks just small enough to avoid the bank's fraud alerts. She'd been skimming for over 2 years. That's when the hurt started mixing with something colder. I didn't confront her. I started mirroring the accounts myself. Every time she moved money, I moved the same amount into a trust my dad's old lawyer set up years ago that Lisa never knew existed. She thought she was draining me. In reality, she was filling my war chest. By the time I walked into that country club with Jessica Hargrove on my arm, Lisa had successfully stolen just over $1. $2 million she thought was safely hidden. She had no idea I'd already stolen it back, and then some. The first time I met Jessica Hargrove was in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel off I-95, about an hour south of Richmond. Neutral ground. She pulled up in a white Range Rover, stepped out in running tights and oversized sunglasses like some movie star hiding from paparazzi, and said, "You Mike?" I nodded. She handed me a manila envelope and a large coffee, black, 2 sugars, exactly how I drink it. Russ had told her. Inside the envelope were photos taken over 4 months. Lisa and Mark coming out of a condo in Miami, holding hands on a block from his office in Charlotte, kissing in the front seat of his Tesla in the long-term lot at CLT Airport. Time-stamped, GPS tagged, high enough resolution I could read the parking ticket on the dashboard. Jessica didn't cry or scream. She just sipped her coffee and said, "He thinks I'm in Aspen with my sister this week. I'm actually at the Embassy Suites in Cary watching your wife buy lingerie at Victoria's Secret with my husband's Amex." Then she laughed, this short, tired laugh, and added, "I always hated that shade of pink on her." We talked for 90 minutes. Turns out Mark had been doing the exact same thing to Jessica that Lisa was doing to me. Bleeding the joint accounts, hiding money in LLCs, planning a soft landing with his new woman. Jessica had caught it 6 months earlier when their accountant accidentally emailed her the real tax returns instead of the fake set Mark had shown her. By then she'd already hired her own forensic guy and was just waiting for the right moment. That's when we made the pact. No screaming phone calls, no sloppy affairs of our own, no public scenes, yet. We'd pool information, share reports, coordinate timelines. 2 betrayed spouses with 1 shared enemy, the life we thought we had. Jessica's line that day stuck with me. They want to burn our houses down and build a new one together on the ashes. Let's make sure there's nothing left to build on. Cold. Sure. But when you find out the person you sleep next to has been treating your life savings like an ATM for 2 years, cold starts to feel like the only sane temperature. Over the next 4 months, we became unlikely friends. Late-night texts with new account numbers. Dropbox folders full of bank records. Once, a 30-second phone call where all she said was, "She just moved another $80K. Your move." And I answered, "Already mirrored. Sleep well." We never flirted, never crossed that line. It wasn't about loneliness. It was about survival. And it was about the party. The country club gala was the one night a year everybody who mattered in Charlotte showed up. Lisa's perfect life on full display. She'd been chairperson the last 3 years running. This year she'd bragged to anyone who'd listened that Mark Hargrove had generously underwritten the open bar. Jessica and I decided that was the night we'd pull the pin. 3 weeks before the gala, everything accelerated. Russ called me from his truck outside a Wells Fargo branch in Wilmington. Lisa had walked in wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, like that fools the cameras, and opened a safe deposit box under the name of her old college roommate, who died in 2018. She put in 2 fat envelopes and a flash drive. Russ couldn't legally get inside the box yet, but he bribed a janitor to photograph the log. Lisa had visited 4 times in 10 days. That same afternoon, Jessica sent me a screenshot. Mark had just wired $240,000 to a trust in the Caymans with both their names on it as co-trustees. The memo line read, "Seed Capital, Paradise Phase." Paradise Phase. Like they were launching a startup instead of torching 2 families. I sat in my office, door closed, blinds half down, and stared at those words until they stopped looking like English. 22 years of 80-hour weeks, of sleeping on factory floors when shipments were late, of missing my own kids' birthdays to close deals, so she could fund Paradise Phase with a man who pronounces espresso with an X. I didn't slam anything. I didn't drink. I just opened the spreadsheet I'd been keeping for 8 months, added the new numbers, and hit save. Then I called my lawyer, Tom Cavanaugh, old school Irish, still writes on yellow legal pads, and told him it was time to stop preparing and start executing. Tom's exact words, "About damn time, Mike. I've got enough to bury her in filings before breakfast." Here's the thing people get wrong about divorce in North Carolina. It's not no fault if someone committed financial fraud or adultery with provable damages. You can still sue the affair partner for alienation of affection and criminal conversation. Most lawyers won't touch those cases anymore, too old-fashioned. Tom loves them. Says it's the last place left where a man can get actual justice instead of just a participation trophy and half his pension. We filed the next morning. Not the divorce yet. That would come later. First, we filed civil claims against both Lisa and Mark personally, plus a lease pinned-ins on every account either of them had touched in the last 3 years. Then we froze the Cayman's trust with an emergency injunction out of Grand Court. Jessica's cousin is a barrister down there. Small world when you've got money and motive. Lisa came home that evening to find a sheriff's deputy sitting in our driveway waiting to serve her. I wasn't there. I was at the warehouse counting inventory like any other Thursday. My phone buzzed with a single text from her. "We need to talk. Now." I left her on read. She blew up my phone for the next 48 hours. 43 missed calls, voicemails that started calm and ended with her crying so hard the words dissolved. I listened to exactly one of them while sitting in my truck outside Home Depot. She said, "Mike, whatever you think is happening, you're wrong. I can explain everything. Please just come home." I saved it. Evidence. By Monday morning, her tone had flipped. The tears were gone. Now it was threats. "My lawyer says you can't freeze money that's legally mine. Then, you're going to look like a paranoid old man in court." Then the one that almost got me. "Think about the kids. Do you really want them to hear what you're accusing their mother of?" I thought about the kids every minute. Our son was 20, daughter 19. Both away at school. I'd already flown up to see them separately, sat them down, showed them the bank statements, the photos, the offshore filings. I didn't sugarcoat it. I just said, "Your mom made choices. I'm making mine." My son hugged me and didn't say much. My daughter cried for an hour, then asked if she could still love her mom without defending her. I told her yes. That's the only time my voice cracked during this whole thing. Meanwhile, Lisa was scrambling. Russ watched her try to move what was left in the Wyoming LLC, $311,000, to a new account in Singapore. Too late. The bank flagged it, froze it, called me because my name was still on the original signature card from years earlier. She actually screamed at the branch manager loud enough that security escorted her out. That same afternoon, Jessica texted me a 30-second video. Mark storming into their kitchen, face purple, yelling, "Who the hell is Michael freaking Thompson and why does he have a lien on my 401k? Jessica just sat at the island sipping Chardonnay, filming with the other hand. She captioned it, "He finally Googled you. Welcome to my last 6 months." I laughed out loud in the middle of a client dinner. People probably thought I was crazy. 2 nights before the gala, Lisa showed up at my hotel room. The Marriott by the airport, nothing fancy, just a place to sleep while the house was hostile territory. She was wearing the coat I bought her in London the year we turned 40. Looked like she hadn't slept in days. She said, "If you drop all this right now, we can go to counseling. We can fix it. I'll sign whatever you want." Then quieter, "I never stopped loving you." I stood in the doorway and said, "You stopped loving me the first time you moved money that wasn't yours. Everything after that was just noise." Then I closed the door. Softly. Slamming it would have been too easy. She sat in the hallway crying until security asked her to leave. That was the last time we spoke before the party. The morning of the gala, Tom called me at 6:12 a.m. while I was still on my first cup of coffee. "Judge signed the order an hour ago," he said. "As of 30 minutes from now, every account in her name, or any LLC she's ever touched, gets a big red frozen stamp. Same for Hargrove. They won't know until they try to pay for something. I figured you'd want that to happen right about the time the string quartet starts playing." I told him he was a beautiful human being. Jessica and I had rehearsed the timing like a military operation. I'd pick her up at 7:45 p.m. sharp. She'd wear emerald green. Lisa once told her green made her look washed out. So of course Jessica chose the dress that cost more than most people's cars. I wear the same black tux Lisa always said made me look like George Clooney's tougher older brother. We wanted them to see exactly what they were losing. At 7:23 p.m., Lisa tried to Venmo the country club the final $18,000 balance for the bar. Declined. She tried her Amex Black. Declined. Mark tried his corporate card for the valet. Declined. By the time Jessica and I rolled up in my old F-150, I left the Bentley at home on purpose. They were both at the front podium arguing with a 20-year-old event manager who kept saying system glitch while secretly loving every second. We walked past them without a word. Jessica handed the kid a folded 100 and said, "Park it close, sweetheart. We won't be long." Lisa's mouth actually opened and closed like a fish. Inside, the place was packed. Bankers, doctors, the mayor, half the Panthers ownership group. Lisa had spent 8 months planning every detail, right down to the custom ice sculpture of a swan. The swan was already melting under the lights, dripping into the shrimp display. Felt poetic. For the first 20 minutes, Jessica and I worked the room like a political couple. I introduced her as a dear friend going through the same remodel troubles as me. People laughed, thinking I meant construction. Jessica air-kissed cheeks and dropped lines like, "Oh, Lisa and I have so much in common these days." You could feel the whispers spreading like spilled bourbon. Then came the moment everyone in that room still talks about. The MC, some morning radio guy Lisa had booked, tapped the microphone and said, "Before we start the live auction, a special thank you to our chairwoman, Lisa Thompson, and our platinum sponsor, Mr. Mark Hargrove." The spotlight swung to them. They were supposed to walk up together, arm in arm, smiling for the photographer. Instead, they stood there like statues while 400 people clapped politely and waited. I took Jessica's hand, walked straight into that spotlight, and said loud enough for the whole ballroom, "Actually, let me handle the thank you. Lisa, Mark, thank you for reminding the rest of us that marriage is a contract. And contracts have consequences." Dead silence. You could hear the ice sculpture dripping. Then Jessica raised her champagne glass and added, "To new beginnings. Ours, not yours." A couple guys in the back actually started slow clapping. Within 10 seconds, half the room was doing it. Not for us, for the sheer balls of the whole thing. Lisa ran out a side door. Mark followed 5 seconds later, face the color of rare steak. Jessica and I stayed another 40 minutes. Long enough for photos, long enough for the story to hit every group chat in Charlotte before dessert. We didn't go to the after party. Jessica wanted to, just to twist the knife a little deeper, but I was done performing. I dropped her at her sister's condo uptown, gave her a hug that lasted 1 second longer than polite, and drove home to the hotel with the radio off. First quiet I'd had in months. At 2:07 a.m., my phone lit up. "Lisa." Not a call this time, a text that just said, "I'm at the house. Can you please come so we can talk like adults?" I stared at it until the screen went dark. Part of me, the part that still remembered her pregnant with our daughter and terrified in that hospital bed, wanted to drive over. The rest of me, the part that had watched $1.8 million vanish into her paradise face, opened the banking app instead. Every frozen account now showed $0. 0 available. Even the safe deposit box had been drilled by court order that afternoon. Inside were bearer bonds worth another $220,000 and a one-way ticket to Grand Cayman dated 3 days from now. 4-2. I typed back, "House is in the trust now. You've got till noon tomorrow to get your clothes. After that the locks change." She responded with a single voice note. 38 seconds of pure sobbing. No words. I listened once, saved it for Tom, deleted it from my phone so I wouldn't play it again at 3 a.m. When the whiskey started talking. Next morning, the country club group chat was a war zone. Someone had filmed the whole spotlight moment on an iPhone. Shaky, but clear enough. By 9 a.m., it was on a private Facebook group with 4,000 members titled Charlotte T. Caption: "When you pick the wrong team for the group project." Mark got fired by noon. Board met in emergency session once the alienation of affection suit hit the courthouse website. Public companies don't like headlines that include the phrase criminal conversation. His corner office was cleaned out by security while he was still trying to get cash out of an ATM that kept spitting his card back. Lisa tried the tears routine on our daughter. FaceTime at 1 p.m. from what used to be our bedroom. I know because my girl called me right after, voice shaking. "Dad, she says you're ruining her life, and she has cancer." Classic move. I told my daughter to ask for the oncology records. 10 minutes later, Lisa hung up on her. That afternoon, the moving crew showed up, Two guys I know from the warehouse, big boys who don't ask questions. They boxed Lisa's clothes, shoes, the framed photos she wanted. Everything else stayed. I watched on the Ring cameras while eating a sandwich in my office. She stood on the front porch in yoga pants and last night's makeup, hugging a suitcase like it was a life raft. When the truck pulled away, she just sat down on the top step and put her head in her hands. I felt exactly nothing. That scared me more than the rage ever did. 3 weeks after the gala, Tom walked into my hotel suite carrying a banker's box and the kind of grin he usually saves for when the Panthers beat Dallas. "You're going to want to sit down for this one, Mike." Inside the box were Lisa's real ledgers. Not the cute little Excel she showed the marriage counselor 2 years ago when we worked on budgeting. Real ones. Handwritten in a leather-bound journal she apparently kept in a locked file cabinet at her interior design office downtown. An office I paid for that mostly served as a place to meet Mark on lunch breaks. The forensic accountant spent 11 days reconstructing it. Turns out the greed went way deeper than the $1.8 million I already knew about. Back in 2019, right after I sold my first company for $42 million, Lisa quietly set up a revocable trust in South Dakota. One of those dynasty trusts rich people use to hide money from taxes and future ex-spouses. She siphoned $6 million total over 4 years. Not all at once. She was patient. A bonus to her LLC here, an investment in a friend's art gallery there, fake invoices from vendors that never existed. The woman learned to cook books better than most CFOs I've hired. And the kicker? The sole beneficiary of the trust wasn't her. It was Mark Hargrove. She'd been planning to leave me since before the ink was dry on the sale papers. The affair, the tears, the "I feel so neglected" talks, all theater. She just needed me calm and trusting long enough to finish the transfer. Tom laid the trust documents on the table like a royal flush. South Dakota's private, but they still have to answer a federal judge when we allege fraud. We got the whole thing unsealed yesterday. She never saw it coming. I stared at those pages for a long time. $6.4 million. More than I had in liquid cash after taxes and reinvesting. She'd taken everything I'd bled for and gift-wrapped it for a guy who wears loafers with no socks. Then I did something I hadn't done once through the whole mess. I put my head in my hands and cried. Not loud, not long. Just enough to feel the last piece of the man I used to be break off and sink. Tom waited. Poured me a bourbon I didn't drink. When I looked up, I asked the only question that mattered anymore. "Can we get it back?" He smiled again. "Every penny, plus punitive. And South Dakota trusts don't shield criminal fraud. She's looking at federal wire fraud charges if we push. Mark II. I'd say we've got them in a vice." That night, I drove to the house, my house, for the first time since she left. Walked through every room with the lights off. Stood in the kitchen where she used to dance barefoot to Van Morrison while cooking pasta. Sat on the edge of the bed we picked out in High Point 20 years ago. Then I opened my phone, transferred the $6.4 million from the trust, now court-ordered into my control, into a new account with only my name, and texted Jessica one line. They didn't just want a divorce. They wanted my grave. Time to start digging theirs. The next 6 weeks were quiet on the outside, deafening on the inside. Lisa moved into a 2-bedroom condo in South Park that one of her design clients mysteriously let her use rent-free. Mark got kicked out of his own house by Jessica. She changed the locks while he was at the gym and left his clothes in garbage bags on the driveway. The country club membership both families had held for decades, quietly revoked. The board cited conduct detrimental to the reputation of the club. Translation: nobody wants to eat prime rib next to people who got humiliated on a viral video. I didn't gloat publicly. Men my age don't need to. The silence was louder. Behind the scenes, Tom and the U.S. Attorney's office in Charlotte were having very polite conversations. Federal wire fraud across state lines, conspiracy, structuring to avoid reporting requirements, felonies that actually scare rich white people. The assistant U.S. attorney was a woman about 35 who grew up in a trailer park and still had the chip on her shoulder. She loved the case. They offered Lisa a deal first. Plead to 1 count, 5 years probation, full restitution, no jail if she flipped on Mark, and gave a complete proffer. She refused. Thought her tears still worked on men in suits. They scheduled her indictment for a Tuesday in February. 3 days before that Tuesday, she called me from a blocked number. I answered because I figured it was one of the kids. She sounded like someone who hadn't slept in a month. Mike, they're going to arrest me. Handcuffs. My name in the paper. Please. I'll sign anything. I'll leave the country. Just make it stop. I let her talk until she ran out of air. Then I said, you remember when we closed on this house? You stood in the empty living room and told me this was where we'd grow old together. I believed you. That was the last time I ever let myself be that stupid. She started sobbing again. I finished with, you wanted paradise face. Looks like you bought a one-way ticket. Enjoy the flight. And hung up. The morning of the indictment, I was in Tom's office when the news alert hit. Lisa Marie Thompson, 48, and Mark Allen Hargrove, 51, charged with 9 federal felonies. Bond set at $500,000 each, signature only, meaning no 10% to the bondsman option. Both taken into custody at their lawyers' offices because the marshals love dramatic footage. By noon, the mugshots were everywhere. Lisa's hair was stringy, mascara streaked, eyes swollen. Mark looked like he'd aged 15 years since the gala. Jessica sent me a text with just the peach emoji and the line, "Karma's a bitch, but she tips well." That night, I did something I hadn't done since our daughter was born. I poured one bourbon, sat on the back porch of the empty house, and turned the glass in my hand until the ice melted. Then I poured it out on the grass. Some chapters you don't toast. 6 months later, the case was over faster than anyone predicted. Lisa flipped the day after her first night in Mecklenburg County Jail. Orange jumpsuit, no makeup, sitting across from the prosecutor with Tom and me watching through one-way glass. She cried through the whole proffer, named every account, every fake invoice, every time Mark told her, "This is the last transfer, I swear." She even handed over the burner phone they used, still had the text thread titled MNL Forever. Forever lasted exactly until the feds showed up. Mark tried to fight. Hired some hotshot from Atlanta who loved cable news hits. Didn't matter. Once Lisa's testimony locked in, the evidence was a tsunami. Jury took 4 hours to convict on all counts. Judge gave Mark 8 years federal, Lisa 42 months. Less because she cooperated, still more than she ever imagined spending anywhere but a spa. Sentencing day, I sat in the back row. Lisa walked in wearing a gray dress 2 sizes too big, hair cut short like the jail made her. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she turned, found me in the crowd, and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I didn't nod, didn't shake my head, just looked back until she dropped her eyes. Afterward, the marshal led her away. Last time I ever saw her. The money came back in pieces. The feds seized the South Dakota Trust first, 6.4 plus 3 years of compounded interest. The Cayman's account, the Wyoming LLC, even the safe deposit bonds. All told, I got back $9. $2 million after the government took their forfeiture cut. More than I started with. Tom called it the most profitable divorce in North Carolina history. I called it blood money with interest. Jessica got her share too. Cleaned Mark out the old-fashioned way. Alienation suit, criminal conversation, the works. Last I heard, she bought a horse farm outside Tryon and started dating a veterinarian 10 years younger who doesn't own a single pair of loafers. Me? I sold the big house. Too many rooms that echoed. Bought a smaller place on Lake Norman. Poured concrete dock. Good depth for the boat I always wanted but never had time to use. My son graduated in May. We took the boat out, just the 2 of us, fished until the sun went down and never once mentioned his mother. Sometimes on Sunday mornings I drive past the women's prison in Raleigh. Not to visit, visitation list is locked tight. Just to remind myself the story actually ended. I never stopped the truck. Never will. People ask if I hate her. Hate's too much work. What I feel is closer to the way you feel when you finally close the door on a house that burned down. Grateful you got out, sad it ever caught fire, and certain you'll never build anything that flimsy again. So here I am, 52 years old, sitting on a dock I paid for twice. Once with sweat, once with betrayal. Drinking coffee that doesn't taste like ashes anymore. The kids are good. My son's interning at my new company this summer. Quiet kid, but he's got my stubborn streak and his mother's eyes. My daughter calls every Sunday night without fail, even when she's hungover from sorority formal. We don't talk about Lisa unless they bring her up first. When they do, I just listen. That's what dad's work now. I kept one thing from the old house, the framed photo from our 10th anniversary. We're standing on a beach in Maui, wind blowing her hair across my face, both of us laughing like we were still broke and bulletproof. I hung it in the garage, facing the toolbox. Reminder, not shrine. Some days I flip it around when I'm wrenching on the boat. Some days I let it watch. Jessica and I still text every few months. She sent me a picture last week, her on a horse, hair wild, grinning like a woman who finally remembered who she was before somebody else told her who to be. I sent back a picture of the base I caught at dawn. We don't need words anymore. And Lisa? She's inmate number 34871-058 at FPC Alderson. Got a job in the prison library, they say. Reads romance novels all day and teaches the younger girls how to balance a checkbook. Irony's got a sense of humor. Sometimes men in the comments ask me, would you take her back if she got out tomorrow and begged? I give them the same answer every time. Brother, the man who would have taken her back died in a country club ballroom the night I walked in with another man's wife on my arm. That guy's not coming back, and I don't miss him one bit. I rebuilt richer, quieter, sharper. I sleep straight through the night now. The boat starts on the first turn, the coffee's hot, the lake's flat as glass this morning. Life didn't give me back the years she stole, but it gave me the rest of my years on my own terms. And if that isn't winning, I don't know what is. So to the young guys watching this, the ones still believing love conquers all and forever is a promise instead of a prayer, protect your peace, guard your money, and never, ever hand someone the matches just because they're good at warming their hands by your fire. I learned the hard way. Hope you don't have to. Take care of yourselves out there.